Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to my program, Our Real Talk today. I've been talking to Abbas Najib on anti-Muslim hate, and he's from the Better Communities Bradford program that they run in Bradford, and also looking at issues around empowering women, and Unity Workshop, which is looking at how we can challenge some of the anti-Muslim hatred which is out there in our communities, particularly within the non-Muslim community and people of colour. And we know what's been happening in the country over the last few years. In particular, Baroness Saida Awasi, a dear old friend of mine with whom I worked very closely, made this comment many years ago about the sort of anti-Islamophobia passing the dinner table test. And at that time, people sort of did not take her very seriously. And unfortunately, she has been not only been proven right, but we've gone beyond the sort of gentle Islamophobia passing through the dinner table test. We've seen violence on our streets, particularly against Muslims, that take place in recent 2 years, particularly after the Southport attack, where mosques and madrasas were attacked. And this has been led by some politicians who don't understand some of the challenges which are faced by migrant communities in this country, and they're looking for any excuses. Now we know that they're looking at migrants. Even in America, for example, President Trump is putting all the blame on migrants and illegal immigrants who come into the country, who in their opinion are creating all the problems in their communities as well. And therefore this push to try and throw migrants out of their nations. So we've been talking to Abbas Najib around some of the work that he's been doing, particularly with institutions, to challenge some of those narratives. And we talked about communications and clarifications, but also about conversation. Now, we talked about conversation before we went for the break. Do you feel that there's enough conversations taking place? I just said before we went to the break that I think, in my opinion, and that is where we've failed, that we've not had conversations with local communities in the past. And is that one of the reasons why we're now in the situation that we're in?
I'd like to reframe that. I wouldn't consider it a failure.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was an inevitable reality of the time.
Right.
We all know how our parents came here, how they had to focus on their livelihoods. Now is the time for those conversations, or maybe up to about 10 years ago is the time for those conversations to happen. And yes, they're absolutely crucial. We do need to have those conversations. And that's the driving force behind our project, Project Unity, is to have those conversations with non-Muslims and tell them, inform them, educate them about what our beliefs actually are.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I speak to a lot of Christians, cultural Christians or practicing Christians, and most of them do not know what the Islamic stance is on Prophet Isa, Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, or the Mother Mary.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something in which we do need to improve on, absolutely. This is a gap that really needs filling. And I think there are increasing organizations that are doing this work, and I think it does need to keep growing.
But I mean, with all due respect, I don't know, I mean, you were born in Bradford, so you're born in this country. But I know from the 70s, people have been working around community cohesion, community relations, etc. Yeah, and people feel that despite that work over the 70s, 80s, etc., that we still seem to be now actually going backwards. If you talk to people like Ishtiaq Ahmed, who was a community relations officer, race equality director in Bradford for many years, and they were doing some of this work in the 70s and 80s, right? And they feel that we seem to have gone backwards.
We have gone backwards.
Yeah. So why is it that despite all that work that was taking place in the 70s and the 80s?
Because there's a very strong, very deliberate, very methodical push to further anti-Muslim prejudice. It's not accidental. It's not that right-leaning politicians don't understand.
In the 70s and 80s, I don't think there was really a concerted sort of effort to try and sort of deliberately create an anti-Muslim sort of narrative at that time.
Now there is.
Now there is, yeah.
Now there is.
Because the EDL, right, before that, I mean, before you were probably born, there was an organization called the National Front.
I know the
which,
National Front, yes.
then became the EDL, etc. And then
BNP was around, yes, I remember them.
The British National Party. In fact, I've been told by people from Bradford that this place actually used to be one of the headquarters of the right wing sort of parties that and look at Allah's changed it completely now.
There's a lot of money, a lot of power, a lot of influence in hate. It's a very effective political tool, and it's used deliberately and methodically. The politicians that push prejudice and hate don't do it accidentally. It's not that they don't understand it. They know better than most people. They are very well informed, but they also know the tribal nature of humanity, and sometimes it's a lot easier to just point at something and say, I hate that, instead of trying to tackle very serious, very ingrained issues like wealth inequality, for example, or the bleeding dry of the NHS, or the fact that the top 1% in this country own 50% of all the wealth in the country. The average person, the average non-Muslim, the average white person, for example, can't really affect that. What is very helpful to and cathartic to that person is when some leading politician or someone with a national profile gives them the permission to say, it's their fault, hate them, those with the brown skin. And let's be very clear about this. There's a massive intersectionality of anti-Muslim prejudice and racism. This is a religious, racial issue. Almost 98%, 99% of Muslims in the UK are people who are brown or black. This is very much a race issue.
Right. So it's more to do with race than faith.
My assessment would be two birds with one stone.
Right. But then how would you say that people from other Asian backgrounds who got other faith communities, or who are of other faith communities, like the Sikhs and the Hindus, are not facing the same backlash that the Muslim community are?
They are. They're just targeted with anti-Muslim narrative.
So no, I mean some non-Muslim people, white people, let's be honest about it, who can't distinguish between a Sikh person and a Muslim person, will attack. I mean, if you look at 9/11, one of the first person who was killed was a Sikh gentleman.
Okay.
Because the person who did it perceived him to be a Muslim, because they didn't have the intelligence, the knowledge that was not a Muslim. That we can, we have to deal with. We understand that, but by and large, Muslims are specifically targeted, but the Sikh community. So Sikh gurudwaras are not attacked. Hindu mandis are not attacked.
Because the narrative is very much against Muslims.
Yeah. So if you're talking about people, can't distinguish, if it's a race issue, so they can't distinguish between a Hindu, Muslim, and a Sikh. All right.
Let me try to answer this as clearly as I can.
Yeah.
Okay. UK society, the Overton window, the polite dinner table talk, we've been very clear that racism is not acceptable. So what does the racist do? He needs an excuse. She needs an excuse. They need an excuse. Okay, we can't be racist. It can't be because of brown or black. So what's happened is now the right wing, whether it's politicians or whether it's media or whether it's whatever title you want to put on that side of the aisle, they've given permission to hate the Muslim. Muslims make up overwhelmingly the people of colour in this country. We are still a small minority. We're only about 6.5%. 45% of all racial, religious hate crimes have been against Muslims. It's because the narrative is very clear. There's a strong narrative push on this that says Muslims don't integrate, Muslims don't assimilate, Muslims do this, Muslims do that. So there's a constant drip, drip, drip.
We know that for a fact. Now, do you think that the Muslim community, what do you think the Muslim community needs to do, other than what you're doing, for example, the wider Muslim community needs to do to try and challenge that narrative? How should they go about doing it then?
It has to be engagement. You will not fix those who are insisting on hating. You will not fix that.
Right.
Okay. But the people who don't know better, they're the majority. I have strong belief in the British majority. I do believe that they are fundamentally a good, decent people. That has to be our target audience, and it has to come through engagement. And how that happens is by speaking with them, running workshops, inviting them into the masjid. York Masjid has been very good with this. Inviting them into the masjid, answering their questions. And one of the complaints that we do get is what you mentioned earlier. is you don't really engage with us. You don't really talk to us. And I do have a bit of a problem that the minority needs to engage with the majority. I don't think that's particularly fair, but we can't become obsessed with that. That is what's needed. The Muslims do need to speak to the Muslims more, speak to them about their faith, what they really believe, and address some of these very uncomfortable conversations, like you mentioned earlier, around grooming gangs and whether or not we integrate and whether or not we commit more crime. And I think it's very clear that Muslims are very well integrated. You look at the numbers, and Muslims are very well integrated. University.
I think your definition of integration, my definition of integration, I think it's different. Let's see your definition of integration.
For me, integration would be things like education, employment, contribution to the economy,
right,
voluntary service, sense of how much that person has an affinity and feeling towards being British. In all the things I've mentioned.
That last bit I understand. The other bit I think is more economical need rather than integration.
Then let's talk about this, because we have spoken about this off camera. What do we need to eat bacon and drink beer to be integrated, or do we need to bleach our skin? Not necessarily.
I mean, a lot of white people don't have alcohol.
Okay.
A lot of people, yeah, you know.
Then what is this integration?
More and more white people I come across who don't have alcohol, right? That doesn't mean that, you know, in the old days when I was young, people say, you know, because you don't go to the pub, you're not part of us, right?
Okay.
That was the narrative.
Okay, so that was then. Now it's changed.
Now it's changed.
So now we have to keep up with this as well.
So what I'm saying to you is, some of it is economic activity that allows us to go to.
How about educational activity?
Yeah, education, economic, because you need to improve yourself. But integration means about two people from two different communities coming together, sitting down, having a chat, and discussing. Now, I don't subscribe to the fact that, you know, when you integrate, you have to go to a pub, you have to eat bacon.
What's left other than that? What is it that we don't do that we're supposed to do?
See, there's a difference.
We play cricket.
No,
we
there's
play
a difference
football.
between integration and assimilation.
Okay.
One of the
yes, I understand the difference. Yes.
So if we can share your definition of assimilation and integration.
Well, let's not say definition. Let's say criteria. So that's the criteria I've mentioned. What criteria would you mention that? Well, it's not these things. It's these things. What criteria
where
do we not fulfill?
Where you engage with people, that is not necessarily. Assimilation is where.
Well, at universities, people engage with each other. At schools, people engage with each other. We're economically active. We work. I myself was a police officer. We engage with people.
Right.
So what is it that we're not doing that we're supposed
to be doing? This
is
what I'm asking you. What is your definition of integration? Is your definition of integration is, you know, we go to school, we go to colleges, we go to universities, you know, we go to, you know, employment, etc.
We volunteer in the community.
Yeah. Now, is that integration in its real sense?
That needs to be enough, because otherwise.
No, does that really bring you the two communities together by just because you're working with somebody?
When you say bring them together, what does that mean?
Right.
What does that mean? Do we need to move our house and go live somewhere else? What does that mean? Because we moved into the area, white people moved out.
Oh, but
it was called white flight.
White flight,
yes.
Yeah.
So that wasn't us. That was the white people who left. Now do we have to chase them and go live in their areas again?
Oh, they're doing it now, because a lot of people have moved up. You know, people, mashallah, people like you, who are educated, you know, now you moved away from the old terrace houses in Bradford 5 or 6 and 7, and now you're moving into sort of more salubrious accommodation.
Yeah, and that's economic.
Right.
That's
the
economic,
economic,
isn't it?
yeah.
Yes.
That's the economic sort of improvement that people have made.
Okay.
But you have all these big businesses, organizations, and charities, for example. And, you know, the definition of integration, that's what I'm trying to get at. What do you mean by integration? Now,
well, I've given you some criteria, so let's.
No, a lot of people, integration is.
Give me some others.
People will come together on a regular basis. They sit down and have a chat.
You mean like cricket clubs and football clubs?
Anything.
Because we do that.
Yeah, anything. Yeah.
We were speaking about Alpha United earlier.
Yeah.
They have something like 300-400 young people who are white and Asian and black, and they're integrated, aren't they? We're integrated in. We are integrated.
I think they're integrated. I mean, look, when you used to play cricket, we used to play cricket with white cricket teams as well.
We did,
right? But then after you finish, when you finish cricket game, do you still mix afterwards, or do you know they go into the separate
Is that
silos?
what integration is? We have to have friendships. Like one of my closest friends is white.
Right.
He's an atheist.
Right.
Does that mean I'm more integrated than the next Muslim man just because I happen to have a white friend?
That's what I'm trying to get at. Your definition of integration, the other side person will say, no, that is not integration. right? Now, I know this the debate about assimilation and integration. I know we'll be coming soon to the end of the program.
Okay.
Now, I know we argued that we don't want to be assimilated. The old argument in the 70s was that all these immigrants are coming in and they're not assimilating. Assimilation was where they wanted the brown people and the black people to actually become like white people. So they go to the pubs, they go to the betting shops.
Yeah,
you know.
We're not going to do that. We're Muslims.
So, yeah, I know, and that's why people never did it. And that's why, you know, people said, you know, hang on, we are Muslim.
Yes.
We don't drink, we don't go to the pub. You know, I remember when I was very young, right, I was a member of the Labour Party at a very young age, and the Labour Party decided to hold this meeting at a working men's club. And they told me to be there by 7 o'clock. So I went to the working men's club. When I opened the door, a white man said to me, sorry, you can't come in, you're the wrong colour. And while my white colleagues who were members of the Labour Party actually went in, I was barred from that place.
So what do we need to do? Change our names?
That is what I'm saying. That is not integration. To me, that was pure discrimination, race discrimination, regardless of whether I'm a Muslim or not.
Shahid, it's the goalpost. It's constantly moving. It's constantly being changed. Well, you're not integrating. Okay, fine, we go to universities, we go to schools. It's not enough. We work in the professional organisations. We're overrepresented in the NHS by a factor of 100%. 10% of NHS doctors are Muslims. 5% of Muslim adults are in the UK are Muslims. So we're only 5% of the adults, we're 10% of the NHS doctors. You start bringing in nurses and the carers, we're a lot more than that as well. So what is this criteria that is forever changing? There's one integration that is truly important, and I speak this as someone who serves on or served on the West Yorkshire Magistrates bench. I joined them about 6 years ago, and that is this: are you complying with the law? That's the test of a citizen. Are you in compliance of the law? And if you are, then you need to be free from criticism, because how well do the middle classes integrate with the welfare class? How well do the upper classes work effectively integrate with the middle class? If they're not constantly being judged, why is it that the people of colour in this country are constantly being judged on this criteria of integration? There's
a class divide, there's no doubt about it. This country is class divisions are very, very clear. There's no doubt about it. And you're absolutely 100% right that those who are in the working class, you know, and they have less integration with the middle class and the upper class. Like you say, you know, 1% of the population owns over 50% of the economy of this country, and the wealth of this country. So yeah, you know, we know that there's a huge disparity between the people at the bottom and the people at the top. But I'm talking about the word integration is a very unique sort of word. What does that really mean?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the question. And what I'm trying to get at is, just because you go to school, you go to university, you go to work, and you have white colleagues or, you know, other colleagues, does that mean integration?
Well, I think it does, yes, because if you do all those things and you're in compliance with the law and you're civil and polite effectively to your neighbour who might not be a Muslim or might be a white person, that's integration. Because other than that, you're demanding what? Extensive friendships? What is this criteria that we're going to be judged on? And if it's not clear, then it's deliberately left that way so it can be used as a stick to beat the Muslim community. Beyond working effectively, educating effectively, compliance with the law, obeying the rules and the
law. I understand the law bit, your argument you're making, because the law applies to everybody.
Yes.
Now, if you just take that as an issue, we know, for example, that, you know, the prison population is very highly overrepresented by people from colour, right? And is that because the justice system is prejudiced, or is it because people from that section of the community are actually engaged in more criminal activity? I'm sorry, we're going to have
both those are true.
Yeah, we know that 20% of the prison population.
Both those issues are true.
Is from the Asian community.
It's an economic issue.
Yeah, I mean, you know, okay, we understand that. So, you know, Abbas, I'm really glad you've been here today. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts, your ideas. I hope you've enjoyed the program. You know, and it's fascinating talking to Abbas, and this is one of those programs where we could have this discussion, this, you know, carrying on for another couple of hours, because there's a lot of things to unpick here. And there are some real challenges, as Abbas mentioned, out there. There are people who are trying to divide us, you know, who are trying to put a wedge between communities, and we've seen the impact of that on our community, Muslim community. By the same token, I think the Muslim community has not really taken on the mantle of opening up discussions and debates. As Abbas mentioned, the York Masjid, for example, have done some amazing work. There's another masjid in Dewsbury called Masjid al-Salam, who are surrounded by 4 pubs. It's in one of the most challenging areas in the country. But they've done some amazing work with the local community where they've built up some friendships, and as a result of that, they find that there are friends in the non-Muslim community who have now become part of the sort of mechanisms to protect them. So I would urge all the mosques and the madrasas and the Islamic institutions to try and see how they can build more and more resilience within themselves by actually talking to local non-Muslim communities and building those bridges, and negate some of the challenges that Abbas says he faces in his work, which is the misconception that exists in the non-Muslim community. Inshallah, next week I'll be talking about Muslim foster carers, the need for more Muslim foster carers, so please join me then. Meantime, may Allah be with you, and please continue to pray for our brothers and sisters in Gaza and in Palestine. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.